That recognized you, or they just yelled at you?
Just yelled at me because no other reason.
Well, I had one guy
dressed.
throw poop at me.
Oh,
that was fun.
That wasn't at Pete's though, right?
No. That was over at the Lottaburger parking lot.
Seriously?
When I told a homeless guy that I would buy him a burrito.
What a freaking son of a gun.
He's like, I got a present for you.
He said that?
Yo, dude,
Oh,
it was
dude, that is
awful.
a good.
That's assault.
Yeah.
That's battery.
battery.
Well, actually, did it connect?
No,
Then
dude,
it's
I
assault.
ran my butt.
That's aggravated assault, right?
Where we going?
No, I couldn't push the aggravated even if he had HIV. I mean, if it hit him, maybe aggravated battery.
Well, would it be aggravated assault if I had a baseball bat and I said I'm going to bash your brains in?
Oh, absolutely.
So if I had a big handful of shit and I said, I'm homeless, COVID-19, we locked down the world, I got this right here, I'm going to throw this at you.
I would say a case would be made, but you have to keep in mind in order to prove it, you have to send it to the lab and nobody in the lab is going to test your shit. So.
But what was the deal about a glass of water where they threw it at the cop and all of a sudden that was aggravated?
That I don't understand. I don't know why that
we
was at.
We had that in class, didn't we?
Let's get started, guys.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. We just have a
Rabbit hole.
limited time. You have to get out of here at 8, don't you?
8:15.
Okay.
It's a 20-minute drive back to my house, and it's a 5-minute drive from my house to the soccer field. So.
Okay. Sounds good. So, Zeb, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your law enforcement past and anything else you want to say.
So I graduated the class 189 at the Law Enforcement Academy with this guy. So we were class leader and co-class leader. And to my understanding, we were the only two guys to not ever get fired in the academy's history.
That's because we were that damn good.
True story. We ran that thing like a military operation. But I graduated the academy in 2014, went on field training, graduated that in April, I believe, 2015. Stayed with Santa Fe PD for about the next 5 or so years. And then I went to Espanola PD after I took a break with the pandemic. And now I've had a few different jobs, but also currently running my own private investigation, bodyguarding, and firearms company. But when I was with the law enforcement, I was a field training officer. I trained cops. I was a domestic violence instructor, also a crisis negotiator with the special operations.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. What's your favorite part about all of that? Being a cop, like what did you like? What did you hate?
What I loved was being a crisis negotiator. That was just, my passion was there. I loved just being able to do that type of thing. I also love training, new officers to be out in the field and be out on their own. And several of my rookies are, moving up in the world, and very proud to see them do that. My least favorite was the politics and how it was the good old boys club. And if you were on the, allegedly, if you were on the SWAT team, you could pretty much get away with anything. But if you weren't part of that club, then, you would get the hammer brought down. And can't name names of fellow officers, but I have heard some stories of some truly atrocious ways they handle the discipline over at that place. Speaking from experience, so.
Okay. Wow, interesting. Well, as you know, JD and I are doing some looking into some of the negative things that have happened in Santa Fe lately, and crime that seems to go up exponentially, over the last 3 years especially. What are your opinions on that in general, or anything even specifically?
So I can tell you that probably even started when I was with the police department, because one of the things I used to like to arrest on was panhandling, just because, they're a nuisance. And
So you would actually arrest people for panhandling?
Yes, there is a city ordinance against panhandling.
Okay.
And I remember one arrest I made, the guy told me if he wasn't panhandling, he'd be breaking into houses. So I arrested him. And then we were told later on, we were no longer allowed to arrest for panhandling because the ACLU had filed a lawsuit that it was protected speech. So
Okay.
that was one of the things that started when I was still there, but having seen it go downhill significantly, it's horrible. That's why I'm so successful in the firearms industry, is people feel the need to protect themselves because, cops aren't, always there, or they're too busy. But even on the way here, there's a homeless person crossing the street early in the morning, not paying attention, but, the panhandlers are worse, the homeless are worse, and that's because we don't hold them accountable.
Yeah. if it was up to you and you were in charge of everything, what would you do differently?
I would start, if it was up to me, I'd start by, arresting for panhandling, enforcing the statutes that are on the books, because this isn't a new law. It's there. I would enforce jaywalking, because, jaywalking is huge in front of Pete's. I mean, I've seen numerous people killed just from not following the laws. Just go up to the crosswalk, cross when the light turns green, as everybody else does. So enforce jaywalking, because believe it or not, that's causes a lot of death in the city. But also enforce panhandling, because it actually makes it more dangerous for the city of Santa Fe that we don't, because you can get harassed, you can get assaulted by refusing money. And then I would work a lot more with the DA's office to hold certain offenders to a higher accountability than they currently are. And that means they stay in jail for the crime they committed, either until trial or stop pleading everybody out, which the current rates of plea deals are 97%.
There's a difference between perception and reality. Now, the perception is that crime is on the rise in the city of Santa Fe, and it really a lot of people think, I won't say a lot of people, I think that it really started to blow up maybe 3 to 4 years ago, maybe a little bit sooner. Do you think that the perception and reality are one and the same with rising crime in Santa Fe, or it's not that bad out there?
So I will tell you, the reality is it is probably a lot worse than even you realize, and the only people that truly know how bad it is are the cops out on the street that are responding to those type of calls. My perception, having been a cop and now just being a good old-fashioned civilian, is there are more homeless people than I ever encountered as a police officer. So I think your perception of it being worse is 100% accurate. It is definitely worse.
It's strange because I finally was able to get access to the crime data for 2022 and 21. And prior to that, we didn't really have access to that. I mean, I even looked up APD, and they had a really nice PowerPoint breaking down crimes and all of those things by year. City of Santa Fe, it didn't feel like it was so transparent because it took a while. And then when we finally got it, I just got a really small one sheet. But in 2021 and 22, we had about 8 homicides that they listed. But, violent crimes, all of those, assault and battery, it's exponentially increasing. Matter of fact, I was even looking up data and statistics from a number of websites, and it was Santa Fe is actually above the national average in violent crimes for cities of our population.
Oh, I believe it. Absolutely. And, when I was in college a few years ago, I did a lot of my reports just locally. And I mean, Albuquerque is by far one of the worst cities in this country, but we are coming close to that for our population. So I agree with you.
Yeah, one stat that I read recently that said that we were in the 91st percentile, which means that out of 10 cities, we're the 9th per capita as far as property crime and violent crime. I mean, we're a small city. There's not that many people here, 85 roughly. But yeah, our numbers are not looking good. And so.
Absolutely. And, it's still a little cold outside, so one of the best things you cannot do is warm up your car in the mornings, because that's how a lot of cars go missing. I would be on early shift and that call comes out, hey, I just walked outside, my car's gone. And 9 times out of 10, we would not find it.
Wow. How much of this stuff do you think is overspill from Albuquerque?
I don't think it's overspill from Albuquerque as much as there could be some overspill from Albuquerque, but I think it's overspill from other states, for example, California. Mm-hmm. And I was told, again, I don't want to, call people out that haven't agreed to be on film, but I was told that a lot of people are coming from California because they have 2 strikes in California, and they're coming here because of the leniency of the justice system. Mm-hmm. So,
wow,
because here, you can get away with so much more than you can, and believe it or not, states that'll hold you accountable after that 3rd time, you're locked up for a while.
Yeah, and you almost think of California as lenient, because their reputation nationally, and so if you're saying that people are even leaving California and making it this way, we've heard that several times. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And, you know, I've come across people from all walks of life, and a lot of them, I did when I was a cop, I got the same story every time. Oh yeah, we always hear Santa Fe is so nice to its homeless population, and, you know, that's why people come here. And I've toured the Albuquerque homeless shelters. They are so much nicer than the ones here, because I've also been in the Santa Fe homeless shelters. But Santa Fe just treats its homeless like they're, you know, special.
I think what's happened as a result of the politics of things is we've created a protected class of criminal and a protected class of, you know, kind of the homeless as well. But at the same time, they're wreaking havoc on everybody else. The other protected class is that of, you know, the political class and stuff.
Absolutely.
But so an example, if there's frustration, a lot of times law enforcement is the brunt of frustration when it comes to the public. And that's the perception. It's like, why aren't they doing anything? Why aren't they enforcing something? How much of that has to do with the politics of things?
Oh, 100%. So I'm still friends with some cops, and I talked to a buddy of mine the other day, and he told me, he was like, yeah, I got 13 arrests yesterday, which is incredible. Like, when I was a police officer, if you got 5 arrests, you were like a rock star. So getting 13 arrests in one day is insane. Like, that's 3 officers for maybe like 2 weeks, and he got 13 in one day. Guarantee you, 24 hours later, 90% of them were out the door. If not 100% of them. I don't know if any of them were violent offenders. But, you know, if they were simple shoplifting or disorderly conduct or, you know, whatever it may have been, petty misdemeanor or even misdemeanors, they're all already out of jail. And then 97% of those cases are going to get pled out, if not 100%.
So how does that come down? Like the chief of police says this is what our priority is.
So I will say the current chief of police is the best that Santa Fe has had in several years. Mm-hmm. So I know him, I'd say, reasonably well. I worked with him for a while. But I would say he's doing the best he can with what he has. But the fact is, when somebody tells me, yeah, I made 13 arrests and the crime is still this bad, it has nothing to do with the police department. It has to do everything with the prosecution of these criminals.
I think that's one of those things, you know, I'll go into a gas station and ask them, hey, have you experienced crime? And a lot of times they say, yeah. I mean, we've had it at Tractor Supplies, brazen robberies, Home Depot. And then I ask them, you know, do you guys get like snatch and grab? And they're like, yeah. They go in here, take stuff from us and steal, and we can't do anything about it. And I ask them, why do you think it's happening? And they'll say, well, I don't know. There's not enough police. And my response to that is, it doesn't matter. You could put 500 more police on the street today, and all you have is 500 more police on the street today. Because if these violent criminals are not getting prosecuted, then it doesn't really matter.
You know, you're right, and I don't disagree with that. But the thing with stores is most of them have a very strict hands-off policy when it comes to these type of people, and because of that, people will walk into, I can give you an example at Santa Fe Place Mall, people will walk into one of the department stores, grab a stack of jeans and just walk out because they know per their policy, you cannot put hands on. So while it is the police's job to protect and serve, if the company's worried about their merchandise, because I would never tell a cop to come and protect my merchandise, I would just file an insurance claim, as most of these people do. Mm-hmm. You need to take some responsibility on your own and put in policies in place for your loss prevention to, you know, detain people or put hands on, and that's what insurance is for if you get sued. That is why I carry insurance in everything that I do. So,
what were the biggest problems that you faced when it came to crime, or the things that really popped out? Like, this is an issue here.
So I remember one of the things I just found atrocious was how many DWIs somebody could get before they do some serious time. I mean, you run a history check on somebody and you can get 10, 11, like double digits of DWIs. Like, that's just insane to me, that you allow somebody that is drunk on the street to give the opportunity to kill somebody else. And, you know, one of the craziest things I ever experienced, and this wasn't a call, it was just a conversation with a high-ranking police officer that I was working with at the time. And we went to he had pulled somebody over for whatever reason. He had his gun out on the traffic stop, high-risk stop. Used to be called a felony stop, but it's politically incorrect. So he was on a high-risk stop. I go to back him up, and by the time we were done, we were, you know, talking about the situation. And the thing he told me about that, he told me, keep in mind, this guy had just pointed his gun at somebody, not knowing whether he was going to come out alive or dead. He told me he was more afraid of IA than his life or even my life. And that is not okay, because that creates what's called the Ferguson effect. Cops are afraid to do their job. They're afraid to, get their hands dirty because they don't want to be the next, media circus because they were abusive or, whatever. And I will say,
accused of something.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I will say that, the average person doesn't know how dirty this job is or how bad it can be. And, they don't understand that sometimes you need to, go hands on, and it looks bad on camera, but policing isn't all butterflies and rainbows as they would have you believe.
Sure. I want to take it back to, kind of back to our community for a minute. And I just want to ask your honest, honest opinion. When we talk about homeless people and crime simultaneously, there's a pretty large percentage of our population that gets offended because they feel that there are people that are just down on their luck, and we're, equating them in some synonymous way with the rise in crime. But we can see statistically that there is a relationship there. We know that some people are homeless because maybe substance abuse, maybe they're down on their luck, or whatever the case is, and they don't want to stay there. They want to get better, but there's also that darker part of the homeless population. And we've heard stories about, homeless on homeless violence and even rape and stuff like that. What do you think is the correlation on the ground here for an average Santa Fean? You live in the middle of town, you go to the store, you're impacted by things around you. What do you think is the correlation between homeless people and the increase we've seen in that, and just petty crimes, property crimes, all kinds of crimes, and the rise we've seen in that? What do you think is the relationship there?
So anybody who tells me that a homeless person, they're just down on their luck, whatever. I've been doing, I was a cop for so many years, and then I ran a behavioral health facility with a lot of the homeless people that would come in because they were either court ordered or seeking treatment. Yeah, there's some good people out there that truly want to change, but for the most part, you have people that are just looking for their next fix. They're at the treatment facility because they're court ordered. I mean, I've had people who've, committed homicide trying to get leniency on their court time. They don't give a crap about changing. They just want, less time in jail. And here's my opinion on it. If somebody really wants to change for the better, they're going to. They're going to go out, they're going to find a job, they're going to, figure out a way to make it work. But the homeless people you're seeing are the ones who like being homeless. They like, committing crimes. They like taking advantage of the taxpayer-funded prison system or jail system, take your pick. But a lot of it is just they are lazy, entitled, they have their drug addiction and they're not willing to change. And so they will go out and commit petty crimes in order to, fund their addiction or just keep doing whatever they want to do.
Okay. So, just your off the cuff, just quick estimate here. If we could take, 100% of crime that happens in Santa Fe, your catalytic converter stolen, your car stolen, someone tried your door at night, broke in. My dad just had a generator ripped off from him the other day, car broken into, house broken into, all that stuff. What percentage of that would you say is driven by the homeless population?
Well, it would depend on the area of town to give you that off the cuff percentage. But if you're in the Cerritos corridor where the homeless shelter is, worst place ever for a homeless shelter, I would say 85% of the crimes there are because of the homeless. Now, if you get to break-ins up north or just certain types of crime, just a residential break-in, I mean, that could still be a homeless, but you also have people who are just criminals.
Okay. So second question, and I'm going to ask you to filter that a different way.
Okay.
Of that 100% of crime that we're talking about, how much of that do you think is drug or substance abuse related?
I would say maybe again 80-85% of that.
Across the board, you'd be more comfortable saying?
Across the board, taking out certain, even with domestic violence, that could be funded by drug or alcohol. So
Okay.
So, is Santa Fe a safe city?
I would say no. That is why I don't live in the city. And I was very adamant about that when I was looking for a house. I'm like, I am not going to live in the city limits. It is not a safe place. I've been to too many calls where somebody's camping in my front yard, or they take a dump in their front yard, or hey, I need this person trespassed. Harrison Road is probably the worst city to live on in Santa Fe, just because of the homeless shelter right down the road. So
And now we have like cartel violence now.
yeah, and I'm not sure if they still live there, but I used to know where active cartel members, like I knew where their houses were. Like I could tell you what kind of cars they drove. Like it's not unheard of. And Espanola was just as bad, and you get a lot of those guys down here as well.
So these are guys that are, I mean, this is the I-25 corridor. This is drug
And the
trafficking.
599 corridor, don't forget about that one too.
599 has become that.
Yep, bringing all the drugs. So.
And now it's fentanyl. And I mean, they're pretty blatant about it. You know, I've gone to a couple places. I went to Schlotsky's for a sandwich, and I'm sitting, I order, and there's a group of dudes in there, and I can tell, you know, they're using the phone, they're making phone calls, you know, they're talking back and forth about, you know, getting stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, do I stay or do I go? And do I feel comfortable here? I mean, I stayed there, but the problem is things have changed here, right? I mean, from the time we got out of the academy, you know, to now, are we getting to levels that are going to be hard to come back from?
Yeah, and so when you and I graduated the academy, I did not carry a gun off duty at all, hardly ever, and it took me a couple of years to just even start doing that. Now I don't go anywhere without one, and you know I teach concealed carry, and so many of my students are doing it because they're afraid to live here in the city. And I can tell you from personal experience, even both of my parents who do not live here have come up and visited this city at separate times, and both of them have been either almost attacked. My mother was almost attacked, and thankfully a Santa Fe police officer was able to intervene. However, my dad was harassed with my 5-year-old son that he had with him, and thankfully he was able to verbally de-escalate the situation. That wouldn't have happened when I graduated the academy.
How could things change if you were in charge?
If I was in charge, I would prosecute all the panhandlers. I mean, it's a petty misdemeanor, so you could do up to 6 months in jail. I would put them in jail 6 months, easy. Get them all off the street, or you know, give them a bus ticket and send them back to California. I mean, send them to the liberal cities that are preaching that we love all these people. Send them to, you know, Seattle or Portland or San Francisco or Chicago. I'd you know, send them all back, but say, hey, I won't prosecute you, but here's a one-way ticket to Chicago and you don't come back. Because that is exactly what they are doing here. They are coming from all these cities that are being hard on crime, or the red cities that are being very hard on crime, and they are here because they have an easy time. So I'd get rid of them by putting them in jail or sending them out.
So a lot of these, I think we have criminal networks here.
Absolutely.
You know, people that are professional criminals. That's where the catalytic converters, robbery, all of that stuff. Then you have the drug trade that's going on here. And then homicides. I mean, even then, like eight homicides a year, which, once again, I don't know how accurate the data is that's being reported.
My first year as a police officer, I remember one.
That's kind of the point, right? Is one was kind of one or two. Even then, it was not necessarily a normal occurrence here in Santa Fe with you know, homicides.
No, it was, for me, it was like, yeah, they have a violent crimes division, but it was like, everybody was like, whoa, this is different. It's not like your typical run-of-the-mill, like kicking a homeless person out of a gas station.
Yeah.
And both homicides that I have been physically present on site at have been homeless people, killed by other homeless people.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of them, and both of them were killed with rocks.
That's pretty savage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also really sad. You know, JD and I have talked to a lot of people about this, and we've talked to people on all spectrums of what to do with this situation. And some of the people that we've talked to are proponents of open spaces in the middle of our city and are proponents of spending, millions of dollars on small houses for homeless people. And I think that their heart is to a large degree in the right place because they're just trying to help human beings. They're saying, look, these people are human beings, we're human beings. If we can help them, we should help them. What is your opinion about well-intended people like that would purchase a plot in the middle of town, like the old college, and set up open spaces for homeless people? What's your opinion on that kind of a strategy?
Well, I do like, the good-hearted people that are trying, because, there are some services that are beneficial. There are some that are just not. But, it goes back to what I said earlier, like somebody isn't going to change just because you give them a house. They need to be able to want to change. And again, I've seen people change. I've seen people succeed. I ran into somebody, I used to deal with. He was working as a cashier, recognized me, told me he was doing good. That is a success story because that guy was able to change. He went out, he did what he needed to, and he got a job. But to put something like that in the middle of town, you just can't buy, the college and say, here's homeless housing, because it's going to become a free-for-all for drugs, prostitution, different types of violent crimes. It's going to just turn into that type of situation. So you have to, I don't know what standards I would put in place to, kind of regulate that type of thing. But if you just make it a free-for-all, it's not going to change anything. It's just going to turn one homeless shelter into another.
Yeah. So, the idea of having an open space where, the homeless were allowed to congregate, be in tents, and that kind of a thing in the middle of the city, what do you think the practical effects of that would be on the community?
Well, it gives them a home base from which they can commit different types of crimes. I mean, that's why the Surrealist Corridor by the homeless shelter is such a high crime area, is because that is where they all congregate. That is where they go, to across the street to steal alcohol from the gas station. That's why the dealership right next to the homeless shelter, they moved all their trucks because they would find homeless people sleeping in, brand new $80,000 vehicles. So whatever place you have the homeless shelter by in this city, you are going to have a high crime area. And that is why the Surrealist Corridor is so bad. If you notice, the homeless shelter isn't anywhere near the city hall.
Right.
So if they're so concerned about it, maybe they should move it.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. They should, a safe outdoor space would be perfectly placed right outside of City Hall.
Absolutely. The politicians are, advocating for, more homeless services, and the homeless are their constituents as much as you or I. Granted, they probably don't pay taxes, but still, if the politicians are so concerned, they should, allow easier access.
I would agree 100%. So what would you say the biggest aspects of crime here in the city are? Or the biggest things on a day-to-day basis, what were you dealing with the most?
In my experience, it was, it was mostly just disorderly conduct and harassment. Just, homeless people go into a business, they get kicked out for whatever reason, and they start a fuss, or loitering because, they have nowhere else to go. But also DWI and domestic violence were two of my things that I handled a lot of domestic violence here in the city. And then, one of the things that is still worse than most places in the country is property crime. So vehicle burglaries and then vehicle thefts.
So if somebody ends up shooting a criminal on their property, what do you think would happen? They would probably get prosecuted, right?
They would probably get prosecuted. And here's the thing. And this is because I teach it. By New Mexico law, it does give you certain liberties for justifiable homicide, but it doesn't matter because you will still be prosecuted. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to, say the law, but, read it for yourself and, look at how many times somebody's been prosecuted for doing the exact thing the law tells them to do.
So we don't have a stand your ground type thing?
No, we actually do.
We do.
We actually
but they
do.
Can still
but it's
prosecute.
and when I was in my firearm instructor, it's I was told that we do have a stand your ground type of thing, but it's very much there are certain limitations on that, but it's a very hush hush because the liberals of this state, they're not proud of the fact that you can stand your ground and defend your family or your property.
Which is so weird to me because, what's going to happen when somebody, harasses them and somebody breaks into their home and does violence towards them? I mean, we've had issues of that. It just came out that couple had just been assaulted and beat up.
Yeah.
The older couple on Albert Freed, yeah,
yes,
I saw that, and
yeah.
I think I'd actually commented on that next door app and offered them a concealed carry class. But it actually happened once to a district attorney here in Santa Fe. Their house was broken into and they were threatened, and they were not treated as your run-of-the-mill victim. They were provided a police radio should anything happen. Now you tell me, does the average citizen get that same courtesy if their house is broken into?
No, that's what I don't understand, because some of the laws that they're talking about are, they would ban semi-automatics. That's your pistol. That's a .45. That's personal protection.
And I will say, just because it's public record, he testified in front of the whichever committee it was in front of, the Albuquerque district attorney, or Bernalillo, I believe, district attorney. He testified that you only need 9 rounds. And here's the thing: I saw him on camera. I'm not one to judge. He is male. He is, did not appear of diminutive or small stature. So maybe that's all he needs. But what about the single mom who's 5'0"? She does not have the same physical capabilities as him. So he's looking out for his political interests. He is not looking out for his constituents.
I love the Monday morning. What is it? Sunday morning or Monday morning?
It's Monday morning quarterback because games are on Sunday.
Right. So this is the thing is you only need 9 in a stressful situation. How many stressful situations have you been in? 0. Okay.
He's an attorney. He sits behind a desk.
That's right. Or why didn't you just shoot so and so in the leg? Right? Why don't they train law enforcement to shoot him in the leg?
So this is one thing
Joe Biden said that. Yeah.
Yes.
He also said the deer don't wear Kevlar, so why do you need an AR-15?
I know.
Who am I to judge somebody with dementia? But regardless, I teach my students. There is a standard. It's called standard defensive response. You aim center mass because that is the largest area presented to you. If you can be Wild West and shoot the gun out of somebody's hand, well, good for you. But 99.99% of the time, that is unfeasible.
Well, and then if it is, you're going to get sued for hand surgery because of that.
Exactly. Kyle Rittenhouse is a perfect example of what happens if you defend your life. 17 years old, and he was looking at life in prison.
This is absurd. I mean, there's a system that's in place right now that wants people to stay victims.
Absolutely. Because they vote Democrat.
Yeah, that's the protected class.
And doesn't it make you almost want to move New Mexico sometimes?
Oh, moving New Mexico is in my, hopefully not too near future, but it is somewhere in my future of moving. Definitely going to get out of this state, go somewhere with a competent leader like Ron DeSantis, or somewhere. Well, Arizona's Democrat now, but somewhere better than New Mexico, because New Mexico is failing. I mean, the governor came out the other day and she wants to try and reban assault rifles. It's an AR-15. It's not an assault rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It might look scary to you, but effectively it does the same thing as that pistol over there.
Exactly. And the governor is protected with her state police details. So she says that from the comfort of her own, governor's mansion or her own desk and all that nonsense.
Which I think did she put a wall around the governor's mansion?
That I don't know.
Yeah, we try and keep, as best as we can, we try and keep what we're talking about as local as we can, because if we want to try and do some good at all, we have to resonate with local people. But what we're talking about, really, I mean, you can't not go there, because more and more as you're seeing these ideologies divide our country, you're seeing states kind of do it their own way, where you have Florida. You have, other states that lean more, I would say, common sense. And then you have, leaders of failure like California and New Mexico.
Absolutely.
And what it does is it just makes common sense people in those states want to move to other ones,
I mean, the things we're talking about are local, but they do have national implications simply because we are not unique in our approach to crime. to let people out is just kind of a Democratic talking point right now. So, and it's really the truth. I hate to say it, but this city has really just gone to crap in the last several years, and people are way too nice, and you hear give them a chance or whatever. Like, they've had plenty of chances. Like, at some point you need to just put somebody in jail, let them spend a decade behind bars.
Right, you can't break into houses anymore.
No.
We won't let you do it.
Yeah,
and that's just not, we just don't seem to have that will politically to do.
We are fortunate we haven't heard of anything in recent years, but what if somebody, we have a 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, I can't remember which, but you're allowed to stay home alone, Well, what if that case happens, and what if the worst should happen if, somebody breaks in and it's a, 12 or 13-year-old maybe doing their online school? I mean, what's going to happen then, especially if it was a young female? What's going to happen? They're just going to, let that person out, or they say, guns are the problem or whatever. No, it's just you constantly have a revolving door of criminals, and that is local. That is national implications, but local here. You can go drive down to Highway 14 into the jail, and you just see all the people walking back to town from the jail. So don't ever pick up a hitchhiker on 599 or Highway 14 because they just got out of jail. I can tell you that right now.
Wow.
Quick question: Were you with the Santa Fe PD when the obelisk went down?
No, I was not. Thankfully,
Was Stephen Gushenier there? There were three police that were assaulted that day.
I don't think I was with I'm actually fairly certain. Can you tell me what year that happened? Actually, month and year. I think it was.
Well, that was
2021?
that was 20. That was on Indigenous Peoples Day, which was in October of 2020.
Okay, so I had left the police department in February of 2020. To the best of my recollection, Stephen Gushenier had left for another job before I had even left. So I do not think, unless he had come back again.
But you guys were already dealing with those protests for the fiestas, right?
The last protest I really remember was after Trump had gotten elected, where that protest was just an absolute hot mess. And
Where was that at?
that was downtown as well. That was.
And they were protesting, and was it getting violent, or?
It did get a little violent, and nothing that we couldn't handle, because in my personal opinion, again, I'm jaded because I have been a police officer. Most protesters are, just wimps and pathetic, and they have nothing better to do than come down and
They're
scream
protected.
at cops.
They're
They know they're
man.
protected. And the craziest part was how many lawyers were downtown too protesting. And anytime you would put handcuffs on somebody would be like, "Oh, here's my bar card. Like, I'm that person's attorney." And I was just like, wow. So again, the people who sit behind the desk have nothing better to do.
Right now we're just talking and stuff, because there's some stuff that we're not going to put in there, because right now what we're trying to do is really just be apolitical. Well, I know it's Democrats that are doing it.
Well, we're trying to
Republicans
be-
have no power. But
We're trying to be apolitical at first.
yes, because the next one's policy.
And so we're going to be ratcheting up some of this stuff. And so we want to hook as many of our liberal friends as we can and pull them along and try to help them see the light. So by the time we're done with this thing, we're giving them a different angle of what they think is
Absolutely.
wrong.
Unfortunately, the two are very much interrelated.
Yeah.
It's a mental conditioning. I mean, and that's what's happened is these folks are so conditioned to believe a certain way that if they were to really look elsewhere and start looking at the truth, they would have an existential crisis. The truth is that Democrats have destabilized these cities on purpose.
I agree with that.
They have created an unjust system on purpose because their war truly is with the middle class. Them banning assault weapons has nothing to do with the safety of children in schools or mine or your personal safety. It has everything to do with, that means that government now is unchecked by the people. They could do whatever they want. That is their biggest threat, is not Ukraine and Russia, right? Or drug cartels or any of the other threats that we're having that are real. It's their own people. This city has gone to shit, and it may never ever get out of the toilet. We've had a mayor that has absolutely destabilized this state. We have a governor that's done the same damn thing. And they're constant hypocrites. But people are fine with that because they say, oh, well, it's bad all over the place. I don't give a shit about all over the place. I give a crap about my community.
Absolutely.
And this is not normal. And they're trying to normalize it. You demoralize the people, you destabilize everything, and then you normalize it. And this is where we're at right now.
And at the end of the day, it's about power. Is what it is.
That's what it is.
And so, these things are what happen on purpose, And so, but the thing is this, and this is one of the reasons why we're doing this, is because at the end of the day, politicians have to be liked or they don't get reelected. And just by nature of most personalities of politicians, they're a little sociopathic in some ways. And so they need to be liked. And so if we can make them look bad, then maybe we can have some kind of effect. Because I'm stuck here. I got a business here. My family's here. My parents are older and they're here. I'm stuck here.
Well, I'm thinking what we need to do is change the name of the city of Santa Fe to Shopping Cart City. Shopping Cart City, and we need to put, which has become our new mascot, is a lone shopping cart. Because they're everywhere.
Right. Although I did learn from a senior police officer once that you can actually arrest on that because it's considered possession of stolen property. And, when she taught me how to do that, I was like, game changer. So I started doing that.
Well, he started fining the businesses for shopping carts that were stolen.
Yeah. Well,
And you see that they're not in ACLU's enforcing or suing people because it's, but I've seen them panhandling right in front of a sign that says
no panhandling.
No panhandling.
Well, but again, the cops can't enforce it. They've been told not to.
So policies are created by the mayor and city council.
The weird thing is the policy for panhandling, though, it's on the books as a city ordinance. Like, you cannot do it.
But then they can choose what they're going to enforce and what not to.
Yeah.
That's like if I'm the mayor and you're chief of police and I'm going to say, hey, if there's any crimes that have to do with the illegal aliens or immigrants, you're not gonna prosecute that.
Yeah, no, that's true, because I once detained an individual who had a active warrant from Department of Homeland Security, and it was, again, I didn't really know exactly what the warrant was for. He just had a warrant. Policy is you put that person in your car, get the warrant confirmed, and you take him to jail. I was told to let him go because we are a sanctuary city, and I think that one got ran all the way up to the chief of police of what to do with this guy that had a warrant from, I think it was whoever issued the warrant for somebody who's an illegal. And I was told to let him go.
It's a perfect place to operate if you're cartel.
Absolutely. I remember one of my bad cases. It involved a woman, her newborn baby, and her baby daddy. Guy beat her with it was some type of electrical cord. Beat her with a cord. Threatened his newborn baby girl, and I had a hard time finding information on him because he was here illegally. Because again, what are we? Sanctuary city, and I ended up doing an arrest warrant like I usually do in that case, but based on what his girlfriend told me is he probably went up to Espanola to hide with some more of his drug cartel buddies. Unfortunately, that's the situation we live in. And when I say baby girl, I mean like umbilical cord to
That's outrageous.
several days old. So
That's outrageous.
yeah, and
Wow.
and he beat the woman who just gave birth to his child straight up.
That's
That was
what's
one of the ones that still resonate with me to this day.
Wow. And so you could barely get any information on this guy.
And it wasn't that she wasn't cooperative. She was very cooperative because he even threatened her with a knife and even threatened his newborn child with a knife. It was just a matter of the fact he was here illegally. There was he didn't have a driver's license number, no social, nothing I could find him on.
Sure.
As if, you get pulled over by the cops and you give them your driver's license while your entire life history pops
So
up.
that person actually, in effect, has more rights than you or I do. Because if you or I were to do something like that, they'd throw the book at us quick. Whereas this person can go
all
undetected.
I know is, if that person was found and got arrested on the warrant, I was never called to testify. So that means he was probably just pled out. Again, if he ever got picked up on the warrant, he could have fled back to Mexico for all I know and remains there to this day under an active warrant. I have no idea.
I got one more question for you. And just as far as your opinion goes, I look at the statistics that the city puts out as far as crime and stuff like that. And then I look and see what cops on the street, from my knowledge, even make reports on. how accurate do you think the stats that they put out are as far as, petty crime and stuff like that? And again, specifically, how many little things get by without even being reported?
Well, I would say a lot. I mean, there's a good chunk of things, like, for example, if, say you own a glass repair business and somebody throws a rock through your window and steals, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you're going to just fix the window yourself because it's so much easier to do that than going through all the insurance and reporting and all that nonsense. Or, if you own, and I'm just saying, the business that corresponds with the damage. Say you own like a door business, somebody breaks down your door. Well, you're just going to put a new door up. Like so there are plenty of things that go unreported or people find it's not worth the hassle or
Yeah, like below the radar.
Yeah, not even below the radar. Like, you get there like, hey, can I have your information? They're like, why? In case you have to testify in court. They're like, oh, no, I'm good. They're just going to get out anyways. So they don't bother following through. When I was working, basically I was a cop at a store, and their policy was we will not prosecute shoplifters. And I'm like, so what am I doing here?
Great.
So my policy was, okay, I get the stuff back. As long as I get the stuff back, I let them go because I'm not going to waste my time for for a store that won't even prosecute or even bother to send somebody to testify.
That was here in Santa Fe?
That was actually Espanola, but it's still not unpopular policy here.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So
Then crime is open for business.
it is.
When it comes to like reports, so I file a report. A lot of times I'm getting people saying that they don't get copies of their reports back.
That's on them. Having filed numerous IPRA requests for police reports, you have to know how to do that in order to get a copy.
Which is, why is it so difficult to obtain a copy of a police report and they have to start filing IPRAs?
It's actually not just because that's the standard procedure to get a copy of your police report. In theory, because this is how I did it, you give them a copy of your business card with your name and the case number, and you point to a number on the back, say you can call them or go there to get a copy of your police report, and you still have to fill out a public information request to get a copy of that police report. Now, whether people remember the instructions or just don't know or just assume the cop's going to send them a copy is on them because, again, I could file an IPRA report in like 2 minutes and get a copy of the police report a couple days later. So that is on the individual person to know how to do that because it is not the police officer's job.
How long does it go? I mean, because when is it where it becomes an issue?
Try asking for anything involving officer misconduct or disciplinary records, and I waited from I think September to within the last couple weeks to get a copy, and they sent me one lousy page of nothing on it. And it's public records now because there was a police officer, again, won't name names, but he did something, a case I was, investigating as a PI, and, the city gave me the runaround for months.
So it seems like there's not a whole lot of transparency when it comes to the city, and it even comes to these IPRA requests.
It is very hard to get a hold of anything outside of, oh, you crashed your car, I just need a copy of the report for insurance. You can get that probably the next day, but you ask for anything like, more in depth of, like your crime stats or, something about, officer training or anything like that, because that's all public record. This city is horrible.
It does not inspire confidence in my elected representatives when these issues are taking place. And then I start to feel like you're hiding something, which means that the perception is you guys are corrupt.
I mean, perception can be reality. And if, you don't turn over the records, I mean, me as a police officer, cool. Go through my records because I was good. I'm like, good luck finding anything because, I do my job well. But once you don't turn over those things, it's be like, okay, what are you hiding? So.
This city is completely mismanaged. And
absolutely. And I can tell you there are some cops on the street that should not be there.
That's
they
amazing.
Prefer quantity over quality these days.
If it checks the box, right?
If they check all the boxes, yeah.
Is the city short-staffed on police?
Based on what I've recently seen, I think Chief Joy is actually doing a hell of a job filling those vacancies.
Do you think that just as it is now, as much as he is filling those vacancies, do you think that the Santa Fe PD is short-staffed now?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it has more people than when I started, and we used to have a lot of people.
Okay. So, okay, yeah, just curious about that because a lot of people say, oh, Santa Fe PD is short-staffed. They're short-staffed. We've heard that.
I mean, I think they do need more police, and they do need to fill more spots, but crime's gone up. The number of cops has actually increased, but so has the crime.
Yeah.
It's the numbers they are now having troubles with.
If you had to guess right now, Tuesday night, 2 a.m., how many cops are out? And I know you're not there now. You can't speak to this with any authority, but what would your opinion be?
Between 8 and 10.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I know in the past we've heard that some nights there's like 3.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, especially if you have people calling sick, but, I'm just, guessing if there's 2 teams, which there's always 2 teams on, at least when I was there, and if there's 4 people per team, you got, 8 cops. But then again, if you have, 2 people calling sick, you have other people who had put in leaves, you're down 3, 4 cops maybe.
But that wouldn't be the norm, you don't think?
No, it's not the norm. I mean, there were situations to where we had low staffing or whatever, and we'd cover the entire city during the day with, 3 on each side. But, we still got shit done. So, but it just means calls are going to pin longer. You put the low priority calls with no, suspect information to the bottom, and you handle the ones that are immediate or urgent.
Okay. Good to know.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
We're going to actually test the police force now. So JD and Cassandra are going to get me blasted drunk and throw me on a skateboard. And I'm going to try and make it to Airport Road and see if.
Oh, he's also going to wear a MAGA hat, and then the mayor's.
I'm going to be
get this
completely drunk on a skateboard with a MAGA hat. We've got to do better than that. What else are we going to do? We'll put a squirt gun on my.
No. Do the Apollo Creed shorts. Wear nothing else but shoes and Apollo Creed American flag shorts.
Oh,
Okay.
It's offensive to the liberals still.
I'll do that. And we'll see how many cops ask me what's wrong.
No,
That's ridiculous.
there was one crash I remember responding to. People had issue because he had pro-Trump hat, pro-Trump shirt.
And that's the issue.
He was asking, I bet that guy doesn't have a license. I mean, he was kind of like, I don't care who you are, don't get involved in my scene, but he was rubbing people the wrong way.
He was pushing it.
Yeah, I personally thought he was hilarious, but then his protected class comes from the Star of David he was wearing around his neck.
Oh, so we could try that the next time we're getting in trouble ourselves.
Boom.
Yeah. Look at
Oh,
this.
sorry. I didn't mean to bother you.
Wow.
Please.
That's
He actually
interesting.
made the news there when Trump was in his early years for some stuff he was doing downtown. I don't know if you
I
guys
remember that guy.
Something about
I
that.
remember reading about that guy,
Yeah.
and he was being pretty provocative.
He was, yeah.
He was definitely trying to push some buttons.
Oh yeah, he was pushing my buttons too. I was like, I don't care who you are, don't get involved in my scene.
Totally.
Anyway, brother, thanks, and we'll give you. I'll give you a call with numbers of people.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, let's set up a family class or something if we can.